The office building was nearly empty by 7 p.m., its glass walls glowing faintly in the evening light. Keyboards had gone quiet, suits had gone home, and the only sounds left were the soft hum of the cleaning crew making their rounds. Among them was Malik Turner, a soft-spoken janitor in his late 40s, always in motion, mop in hand, earphones half hanging, eyes quietly observing. Malik had worked at Strathmore Innovations for 5 years. Not in a conference room. Not at a desk. But on the edges of it all, emptying trash cans, polishing floors, overhearing boardroom talk when executives assumed the walls couldn't hear. He didn't speak much. Most people didn't speak to him. A few would nod. Others walked by him like he wasn't there. But Malik noticed everything, the missed memos, the worried faces, the late-night meetings growing more frequent. Tonight, as he polished the tile outside the executive suite, he saw lights still on inside. Laughter echoed, followed by a sharp voice. He paused his mop to listen. Not to be nosy, just curious. Inside, Simon Dre, the youngest and most arrogant VP on the board, paced behind his glass desk. They want efficiency, Simon mocked, mimicking the CEO. We're already running on fumes, and now they want a miracle. Another voice, more serious, if we don't stabilize Q4 projections, we'll be looking at layoffs. Or worse. That word stuck with Malik. Layoffs. He thought of the security guards. Of Tanya in accounting, who gave him leftover muffins on Fridays. Of the dozens of people who kept this place running but never sat at the big tables. He finished his cleaning quietly, but that word never left his mind. And when he got home that night, he sat down with a notebook, the same one he used to sketch mechanics in high school, and began to write. The next morning, Malik arrived earlier than usual. The building was still quiet, the fluorescent lights humming to life as he walked through the marble-floored lobby. Tucked under his arm was a single folded piece of paper, carefully written in neat print, no creases or stains. He wasn't sure if it would even be read. Near the break room on the 10th floor, past the coffee machine and ignored HR posters, stood a dusty suggestion box, one of those things installed more for decoration than use. Malik had passed it 100 times and never given it a second thought. But today, his hands didn't hesitate. He slid the folded idea into the box and walked away. Inside the envelope was a concept, an internal logistics solution for Strathmore's warehousing division. Malik had noticed inefficiencies in shipping patterns, delays in returns, and poor inventory planning from years of listening and cleaning around operations meetings. His idea involved a simple routing software tweak and a storage optimization model he'd sketched out on graph paper. He didn't expect anyone to take it seriously. He didn't even sign his full name. Just, from someone who sees more than you think. By noon, an intern tasked with cleaning out the suggestion box finally opened it. He skimmed the note, puzzled by the complexity. Instead of tossing it, as he often did with Get a Soda Machine or Free Pizza Fridays ideas, he handed it to his supervisor, who glanced at it and raised an eyebrow. "This doesn't read like your average complaint," she murmured. She scanned the flow chart, the calculations, the final line. Estimated savings, $2.3 million annually. Within an hour, the note had landed on the desk of Simon Dre, the same executive who had laughed at the idea of a miracle. He scoffed at first. "What is this, Reddit advice?" But then he paused. The numbers made sense. Too much sense. Still, instead of looking impressed, he smirked. Probably written by some overzealous middle manager trying to look clever. He crumpled the paper and tossed it in the trash. But what he didn't realize, not yet, was that someone else had already made a copy. The next few days passed uneventfully, at least on the surface. Malik, dressed in his usual navy blue coveralls, went about his nightly routine. Vacuumed conference rooms. Polished brass handles. Emptied bins full of crumpled paper, empty coffee cups, and discarded reports. But when he reached Simon Dre's office, his heart beat just a little faster. He saw it immediately, the folded piece of paper he had written on, now tossed into a bin beneath Simon's desk. Wrinkled but still intact. He glanced around. The floor was empty. Gently, he pulled the page out, flattened it against the desk, and smiled softly. "Didn't even read it properly," he murmured. But what Simon didn't know, what no one knew, was that before Malik had dropped his idea in the box, he'd made a copy. And he hadn't just written it out, he typed a version, added digital flowcharts, and emailed it anonymously. To a specific person. That person was Elena Park, Strathmore's chief operating officer. Unlike Simon, Elena had come up through operations, not finance. She had worked warehouse floors before corner offices. She respected solutions, regardless of the source. 3 days ago, her inbox had received a strange subject line: "Fixing Strathmore's logistics, a quiet observation." She almost deleted it. But something about the clarity of the proposal made her stop. Now, she had her team running simulations. Back in the janitor's closet, Malik wiped his hands on a towel and quietly opened his phone. There was a reply to the anonymous email he'd sent. From epark@strathmoreinc.com. "This is one of the smartest proposals I've seen in months. Who are you?" Malik read the line. Then locked the phone without replying. He wasn't ready to be known. Not yet. Elena Park sat in the quiet of her private conference room, eyes locked on the projection screen as her logistics team walked her through the test results. The simulation was nearly complete. And with the proposed routing and storage adjustments, said Annika, the lead analyst, we project a 14.3% increase in delivery efficiency and a 19% drop in operational costs. Elena leaned back, arms crossed, thoughtful. And these numbers held across both warehouse zones? Correct. Even better results in the Midwest facilities. Whoever submitted this idea knows our system better than some of our managers. That line stayed with Elena. She already suspected that the submission hadn't come from a manager at all. The tone, the humility, the lack of self-promotion, it reminded her of someone who watched more than they spoke. She pulled up the original PDF again. Every detail was sharp, from the unit cost breakdowns to the annotated flowcharts of forklift traffic. Someone had walked those floors, counted steps, felt the inefficiencies firsthand. This wasn't just theory, she whispered. This was lived experience. Downstairs, Malik quietly scrubbed a scuff mark off the lobby tile. His posture was calm, but his mind raced. He'd seen the small group touring the warehouse floor that morning, clipboards in hand. He knew they were testing the system. He didn't expect recognition. But he hoped, just maybe, someone would see. That night, while emptying the trash on the operations floor, he overheard two junior analysts talking near the vending machines. You see the new flow in Dock 3? Everything's moving faster now. Yeah, it's weird, right? It's like someone finally figured it out. Not sure who's behind it though. Malik allowed himself the smallest smile before walking away. Back in the boardroom, Elena made her decision. She forwarded the report, stripped of the original email, to the CEO with a single sentence. This may be the system that keeps us afloat. Approve a full pilot immediately. She paused, then added. We should also find out who wrote it, and hire them. The office was buzzing in a way Malik hadn't seen before. People who normally kept to themselves were suddenly moving with urgency, huddled in impromptu meetings, pointing at charts on tablets, and calling out updates over cubicle walls. Something had shifted. Malik quietly pushed his cleaning cart past a group of mid-level managers gathered near the operations board. On the digital screen behind them, a new workflow diagram had replaced the outdated one he'd seen for years. It was his, every line, every route, every arrow. They had used it. He didn't stop or stare. He simply moved along, blending into the rhythm of the floor like he always had, invisible and unnoticed. But his heart beat faster, not with pride, but with disbelief. He had hoped someone might consider his idea, not actually implement it across the company. He reached the executive hallway and began wiping down a long stretch of glass, the mirrored surface reflecting the fast-paced footsteps behind him. Then came the voice he recognized, Simon Dre. I want a full breakdown of this new system. Whoever pushed this through didn't loop me in, Simon barked into his phone. And now the CEO is asking me why we didn't do this 6 months ago? Are you serious? His voice was sharp with irritation, not at the system itself, that clearly worked, but at the fact he hadn't been the one to champion it. Malik kept his eyes down as Simon stormed past, not giving him so much as a glance. Later that night, after most of the building had emptied, Malik made his way to the janitor's closet and took out the copy of his original proposal. He smoothed the edges and reread the last line, from someone who sees more than you think. He wondered if that line had been enough, if anyone truly had seen. He didn't know that upstairs, Elena Park had just finished a call with the CEO, and her next task was to identify the mystery author behind the plan that had just prevented a massive round of layoffs. In a quiet moment of reflection, as he stood outside watching the city lights flicker in the distance, Malik didn't feel like a janitor. He felt like someone who mattered. Not because anyone had told him yet, but because, for the first time, his voice had echoed through the building. And the building had listened. Elena Park walked through the operations floor with a quiet intensity, her eyes scanning every face with subtle curiosity. She wasn't looking for someone with a title, she was searching for someone whose presence didn't match the noise. She had asked IT to trace the origin of the anonymous proposal, but the email had come from a public library IP. No account name. No identifying metadata. Nothing. But one thing stood out, the final line. From someone who sees more than you think. That wasn't a throwaway phrase. It was personal. And it narrowed her focus. Meanwhile, Malik continued his shift like any other. He vacuumed, wiped tables, took out trash. But there was an awareness now, a hum in the air. Managers spoke with less arrogance. Staff moved with more purpose. The old routines were breaking, and in their place, his idea had become the company's new heartbeat. But still, he remained invisible. Until Elena spotted him. She had seen him in passing before, always in the background. But now, as she watched him methodically clean the glass doors of a strategy room, doors that had once been closed to him, she paused. She walked up slowly, respectfully. "Excuse me," she said. Malik turned, surprised but calm. "Yes, ma'am?" She smiled gently. "I've been looking for someone. Someone who submitted an idea anonymously. The logistics overhaul." His eyes didn't widen, but his silence gave her the answer. She stepped closer. "Was it you?" He hesitated, then gave a small nod. "I didn't think anyone would actually read it." Elena nodded slowly. "Most people wouldn't have. But I did. And I owe you a thank you." He looked down, a little overwhelmed. "I'm just a janitor." She shook her head. "No. You're the reason this company is still standing today." Their conversation was brief, but its impact rippled outward. Within hours, Elena had spoken to the CEO. Within a day, Malik's name was being whispered in boardrooms. And within 2 days, Simon Dre, the same executive who had laughed and discarded Malik's idea, was called into a meeting where his pride would face a reckoning. Because the truth had surfaced. The man he had ignored, dismissed, and overlooked was the very one who had done what no high-priced consultant could, save the company from collapse. The boardroom was filled with tension. High-level executives sat around the polished oak table, each one holding a printed report of the logistics overhaul that had just stabilized Strathmore's financial freefall. At the head of the table sat the CEO, quiet but focused. Simon Dre sat 2 seats to his right, pale and visibly uncomfortable, tapping his pen against the table's edge. Everyone in that room knew the numbers: productivity up 18%, delivery errors down by nearly half, and over $2 million in projected annual savings. But now came the real shock, the identity of the person behind it all. The door opened. Malik stepped in. He wore clean slacks and a collared shirt. No uniform. No cleaning cart. Just calm, deliberate confidence. For a brief second, no one recognized him, not until Simon blinked and stiffened in disbelief. "That's the janitor," he muttered under his breath. Elena Park stood beside Malik and spoke clearly. "This is Malik Thompson. He's the mind behind the logistics proposal that you've all now approved and are already implementing." A few murmurs circled the room. The CEO raised his brow, impressed. "You've been working here how long?" 7 years, Malik replied. "Mostly nights. And no one ever asked what you thought?" "No one ever looked," Malik said simply. Simon shifted in his chair, but no one was looking at him anymore. They were looking at Malik, not with pity, but with respect. The CEO stood, walked over, and extended his hand. "Mr. Thompson, I'd like to formally offer you a full-time position in operations strategy. Your insight has already saved this company. We'd be lucky to have you lead us forward." Malik shook his hand, steady and sure. "Thank you, sir. I'd be honored." After the meeting, Simon quietly approached Elena. "You knew it was him and didn't tell me?" She looked him squarely in the eyes. "You had your chance to listen. You chose not to." And with that, she walked away. That evening, Malik didn't go back to the janitor's closet. Instead, he rode the elevator up to his new office. Same building. Same man. But now, finally seen.